The iPad Generation 8 was released about a month ago, but darn it, man, it feels like so much more time has passed, because in that time, Apple has announced and released a lot of crazy and powerful things. But let's hold those horses. You know, sometimes fancy tech devices aren't the best answer. Sometimes simple answers are the best. So how is this simple answer doing after the past month? Let's find out. It's controlling the camera, so I don't want to slam it too hard. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. I've had this tablet by my side for the past month, and while no, it hasn't replaced my iPad Pro in all of its iPad Pro glory, I've been using this an awful lot for things, as it's smaller, lighter, and uses the same charger as my iPhone. Spoilers. I don't know about you, but I don't actually like dragging along extra cables if I don't need to. As this is an X time later follow-up, don't expect any earth-shattering revelations this time around, as in the last month there hasn't been any serious firmware updates, feature changes, and thankfully no rage-inducing bugs introduced to the standard iPad. This will be a refinement and a status checkup on my initial set of videos. I like doing these. I don't consider anything I do a review. I like to do little impressions in progress. Bottom line, if you don't want to stick around for my entire refined thoughts, the iPad Generation 8 is still a very relevant piece of technology. It's got an incredibly powerful processor inside of it, has a fantastic price tag, and for the most part, has the exact same functionality as the almost doubly expensive iPad Pro. If you want to compare this to the rest of the Apple line, this is the SE version of the iPad. And I believe Apple's SE line is hands down the best value in consumer technology today. Now that the bottom line's out of the way, let's dig into these statements a little bit more. And very quickly, yes, very quickly, if this is your very first iPad video, the iPad Generation 8 comes in at an attractive $329 price point for 32 gigabytes of storage. That first opening statement, like that first statement about the iPad, it hides probably the only real negative about this iPad. 32 gigabytes of storage, it's not enough in 2020. I mean, it's almost 2021. 32 gigabytes is not enough. If you only, and I try to stress this in every video, if you only watch YouTube videos and maybe you're gonna browse the internet, that might be okay. I mean, software updates will continue to eat that memory up. I'd say the real first, useful model of the new iPad is the $429 version with 128 gigabytes. Even for $100 more, it's still a fantastic deal, as we'll find throughout the rest of the video. With that $300 or $429 price tag, you do get the Apple A12 Bionic chip, a 10.2-inch Retina display, a 1080p rear camera, headphone port, and a Touch ID home button. And I really want to start with the processor because it's Apple Silicon. The chipsets that they make take their devices from meh, okay, it's a tablet, yeah, whatever. Those chipsets take it into actual useful devices. The A12 Bionic processor was initially released with the iPhone XS line of phones, and it's still, that's still a very powerful processor, and it buys you a few key benefits over the older iPad models. 6-core processors built off of a 7nm technology. That's something that some of the largest chipset manufacturers, cough Intel, it's something that even processor manufacturers still can't really figure that out. It just means that the transistors are smaller so they can fit more in. That's impressive on a tablet. In the past month, I haven't had a single slowdown, stutter, or any real performance problem with the iPad. That's not really remarkable though. That's not really remarkable. I've had the same performance on my Generation 7 iPad. So is the extra price worth it when it comes to the processor? And the problem is, it's really hard to actually put any of these to test in any real way. We absolutely could run a benchmark program showing a numbered increase from last year's model, but would you really be able to tell a difference? Probably not. When it comes to processors and power in mobile devices, in my opinion, what you are really buying is longevity. The iPad Generation 8 will get updates and refreshed operating systems for much longer than an equivalent if you were to buy a refurbished or used 6th or 7th generation iPad. The experience is, it's not all that much different between the generations, which is a good thing about iPad and iOS. And another reason why the 32 gigabyte option, it really isn't an option. I don't imagine iPadOS 15 and 16 will have lower storage requirements. So that 32 gigabyte, that's a life limit ceiling. But besides the power, what are some of the things that I have liked and disliked over the past month? Well, there isn't that much to dislike. If you like iPads and you've had one previously, you'll continue to like this one. It's identical to that previous model. And if I did have to leverage an additional criticism, it would be that there isn't really anything moving the ball forward on the 8th generation iPad. Yes, the power is all well and good, and we talked about that, but the display hasn't gotten a bump, the storage hasn't gotten a bump, the bezels are kind of the same, though in that sense, I guess we should be thankful that we've still got the headphone jack and the home button. You know, with the way Apple takes them from other devices, it's a pretty meta joke. We don't take them away though. I'm not saying take them away. I would though, if we were gonna make one change that I think would be very beneficial and very changing to the iPad, I would like to see USB-C be the iPad standard going forward. Trying to use these as more than a phone for work, you will absolutely be held back by Lightning. I'd be okay with everything else. I'd be okay with the display, I'd be okay with everything else. I am in product development myself, and I understand that all technology, when you're making a product, it needs to fit inside of a budget. But a connection update should be a negligible cost to the device, as they already make a whole range of devices with that connection, and I think it would have huge benefits and ramifications for how you could use the iPad. So Gary, if there isn't that much to complain about, what are the major positives and the thing that you and what are the things that I like about the iPad? Well, the first one is, much like the newest iPad doesn't move the ball forward much, it also doesn't break the experience in any way, shape, or form. It's last year's iPad, but it is faster and more efficient. This is the reason. This is the main reason that I think the SE line is the best in all of consumer technology. These devices, the iPhone SE, the Apple Watch SE, and the iPad standard, they do almost all of what their expensive counterparts do. The gulf between the iPhone SE and the iPhone 11 or 12 now, it isn't all that far. The difference between the iPad and the iPad Pro is more cosmetic than actual function, minus the USB-C and smart connector on the back. You can still get all the cool functionality without breaking the bank. Do you want iMessage? The iPad has it. Do you want the full iWork suite of free productivity tools? The iPad has that. Do you want AirDrop? Shockingly enough, well, it doesn't. Now, I'm kidding. The iPad has that too. It has it all. 95% of what the iPad Pro can do, this can do. It also has the full Bluetooth connectivity, and you can pair all sorts of nifty accessories to it. It's not hampered or crippled in any way outside of the body itself. And even cooler, if you are a designer or you're a drawer or a cartoonist, you can still use the Apple Pencil here. Yes, it's the older version, not the newer version, but you aren't really held back by anything if you want to get a real full iPad experience out of this tablet. When you compare this to how other brands go about their budget lines, this is refreshingly awesome. And speaking of things that you can pair with the iPad, that's really the next thing that I very much liked over the past month, the accessory support. I'm not sure if this is a popular opinion, but this is my opinion, it's my video. I like it when an initial device is cheaper and I can choose to buy additional features on my own to build it into what I want. I don't like paying for specs or features that I'm not going to use. And the iPad here, the iPad standard, is a pretty good starting point to build a productivity or creative system around. Like, it's really easy to buy a few key accessories and build this thing into a powerhouse. I do like this Smart Folio keyboard case. Even if it's not nearly as good as the Magic Keyboard, it's good enough, and for what you can get on the iPad and with the word processing you can do, this is pretty good. I also like that for a few bucks, you can buy a stand, a Bluetooth keyboard, and a mouse, and get a set of laptop replacement capabilities out of an iPad. There are some very specific tasks that you can't do on iPad, but for most work, you can do it here. I'm not gonna go much further than this, as I've already made a whole video talking about accessories for this, but it's just something that I like so much about iPad. And lastly, I still very much like the iPad OS experience. I like that we can now get those dual screen tabs up, and that really helps me when I'm responding to emails, as I can have my calendar up and try to limit the amount of double booking I do to myself, because you hear me complain about this a lot, and apparently I never learn because I continue to do it. I can also have research open in one tab and my script open in the other, leading to a much easier time scripting these videos you hear. And I'm a big fan of anything that makes making these videos easier. I personally continue to use the iWork suite as my main set of productivity tools, and I like that I don't have to pay for them. I like saving money when I can. Don't look at my camera. Don't look at how many cameras I own. I don't exactly like the widget system from the iPad, though I do like that there's more customization options with iPad OS 14 as opposed to iPad OS 13. And that's it. There's just not that much to it. It's not that there isn't a lot to like. There is. It's just that there's not a lot to like specific to this iPad. All of the iPads that are currently available and currently can be updated to the newest software all have this greatness to them. But at the end of the day, so what, right? We have 3 real questions to answer. 1, is this worth buying? 2, is this worth buying if I have an iPad 7 or earlier? And 3, is this worth buying when something like the iPad Air exists for $179 over the 128GB version? To answer the first question, yes, I do think any iPad is worth buying. I'm not as sure as the Mini's place in all of this, but that's a video for another day. If you get the right storage amount, hint, 32GB is not the right storage amount, these iPads can do great for you. I personally think that iPads are some of the best computer options out there if you don't need to do things like coding or really intense workflows for video editing. This just works faster and better than most computers, and definitely better than computers at a comparable price point. To answer the second question, if you have an iPad 7, no, I wouldn't recommend buying the 8. It's not worth buying a whole other device when you take a pretty substantial hit trying to sell an iPad 7 today. You do get longevity, but you already have longevity from when you bought your original iPad. If you have a 6 or older, then yes, I would say this is a worthy upgrade and investment, especially with the way the newer operating systems will take up more space. Plus, having a stronger, beefier processor, it helps so much with running some of these future operating systems. No, you don't exactly have to upgrade. I mean, my father-in-law is still rocking the original iPad, and he does have problems, but he can still use it. It's not ideal though. And thirdly, should you buy this when you can get the iPad Air for a little more? That's a tougher one. That's definitely a tougher question. If you want more accessory support and a sleeker device, that's where I would recommend the iPad Air. It looks like a much better display, and it has USB-C. But if you don't care about the cosmetic, if you don't care about USB-C, you can get more storage space on the regular iPad and have more money left over to build this iPad into a system if you stick with it. And those accessories and system that you build, it will travel with you as you buy newer iPads in the future. And this is just like a thing, right? Accessories last longer than the main devices, like camera lenses. In summary, I think the iPad 8 is a fantastic device. But it's not fantastic because there's that much new here. Apple has a pretty solid formula that they've incrementally updated, and if you are looking at hopping on the iPad train, this is a pretty good entry point that doesn't limit you in any real way. And if you're like, okay, Gary, okay, I do like that, and I'm probably gonna get one. Let me tell you, you know that accessory video I was talking about earlier that you should go watch? You can find it by clicking right here, and it'll show you all the cool accessories that will help you turn this into a full machine monster. You can click right here. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.